Coming up, sometimes taking a bold leap or making a risky move can seem like career suicide until it isn't. Coming up, I'm going to reveal 6 incredible stories of artists who faced doubt, backlash, even skepticism, only to turn those moments into their greatest triumphs, including an up-and-coming singer who had written a deeply personal song that he hoped to release as a single, but his label executives wanted to see how it would do in concert first. The night that he performed it in front of them, he missed his cues and screwed up royally. It was a train wreck. What happened next, though, was beyond inspirational and convinced his label to put the song out, and it became his biggest hit. Find out what it was next. And then there was the singer who got a chance to record the biggest movie soundtrack of the year, but he fell off a stage and broke several ribs. He had to take pain meds, and in the process, he sang the soundtrack songs in the wrong key. He was fired from the project. But you know what? That firing allowed him to write his biggest hit that became a pop culture phenomenon. Find out why. Our countdown of the top 6 career killers that became triumphs is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you did actual time in the hamburger jail at the McDonald's playground, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. I know you'll find something to dig on here. And I'm telling you, we also have our podcast. It's got all of our interviews, all of our episodes, everything out, plus new stuff. It's on Apple and Spotify. Click here or click below. If you'll give us a rating and follow us, that will really help us. Actually, we're already been in the top 10 a couple times and kind of floating around the top 20. Let's get to number 1. I do countdowns about songs that go to number 1. We got to go to number 1. That'd be pretty cool. All right, so today it's our countdown of the top 6 career moves that prove critics wrong. Recently, I apologize, I got a little bit of a throat thing going on here, so bear with me. But recently we talked about 6 of the worst decisions in rock history that led to some horrible results. Everything from the interview that destroyed a band's career virtually overnight, and the music video that brought down a rising star. But then I started thinking, what about career killers or decisions that could have been disastrous that actually ended up working out? Critics, managers, even fans can influence bands one way or another, and sometimes a band or artist can go against the grain and make a decision that looks like it's a train wreck, in slow motion on the outset, but it can actually turn into a turning point. So I'm going to count down the top 6 artistic decisions that could have been a disaster, but actually worked out and became a triumph. Let's dive into number 6. And we've got an album that may have destroyed a band, but you know what? 40 plus years later, it's become one of the biggest songs of its time and defined the time it came from. Talking about Mr. Robboto from Styx. Domo arigato, Mr. Robboto, domo. When this futuristic theatrical track was released as a single in '83, many fans and critics panned it with extreme prejudice. Many called it a sellout because it was too big of a departure from their classic rock roots. Carry on. You're my lady. Even if you liked Mr. Robboto, you enjoyed it privately. You didn't dare tell your friends that you thought it was pretty cool. The core Styx fan accused the band of jumping on the new wave bandwagon with a futuristic synthesizer track, instead of their tried and true blend of hard rock and progressive elements. In the rock community, there was often a stigma attached to bands that embraced the synthesizer and also pop elements. They were seen as abandoning real musicianship. Critics feared that Styx's embrace of these elements would diminish their credibility and artistic reputation. Eddie Van Halen faced a lot of that. The haters were somewhat correct when they predicted the demise of Styx because Mr. Robboto did create a deep divorce between Dennis DeYoung and the rest of the band. It was a catalyst to Dennis leaving the band soon after and releasing a solo album. But the creation of Mr. Robboto ultimately proved to be a brilliant move. This song has become a cultural phenomenon, whether you like it or not. I'm not a robot without emotions. I'm not what you see. It propelled Styx into new realms of popularity, crossing over to new audiences. It solidified their place in rock history, While Dennis performed the track in his live shows, for a long time, his bandmates, former bandmates, they carried on, but they refused to play Mr. Robboto in concert. They made fun of it. Fans kept screaming for it, and then they had to finally relent and add it to their set. Here's what Dennis told me about it.
If I talk to young people, hey, this guy, he's this old guy. He was a rock star. And they said, what band? Styx. Yeah. What? And they said, what were some of your songs? I'm not going to say Come Sail Away. I'm not going to say Renegade. You know what song I'm going to say? I can say those songs and they'll go, I don't know those songs. If I go, Domo Arigato, Mr. Robboto, they know. There's the test. Is it my favorite Styx song? No. But
well, I mean, you talk about a song, we talk about pop culture, we've talked about how your songs have been used in pop culture. I mean, this one, Futurama,
Domo arigato, Mr. Robboto.
Simpsons,
Domo arigato, Mr. Robboto.
You can do it, Otto.
8 Crazy Nights,
Domo arigato, Mr. Robboto. Domo.
Austin Powers Gold member,
Domo arigato, Mr. Robboto.
Dodgeball,
Lobo Jim says Domo arigato, Mr. Robboto, and freezes into the semi.
Arrested Development,
Domo arigato, Mr. Robboto.
the VW commercial, oh my God. And you know who that is in the VW commercial that's doing the robot?
oh yeah, Tony Hale.
You were great in the commercial and you're great on TV.
I remember seeing Styx last summer, and Tommy was just rolling his eyes when they were playing Mr. Robboto. It's kind of funny. The guilty pleasures outweighed the artistic disgust, as Mr. Robboto was not a hero or a savior, but his dystopian story about a future dominated by robots and censorship was a huge hit single, and tip of the hat to where we're at right now. Moving to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. It also went to number 1 in Canada, and it speaks to our times. Coming in at number 5 on our top 6 career moves that proved haters wrong, we have Johnny Cash's legendary live album, At Folsom Prison, featuring the release of the song Folsom Prison Blues as a single in 1968.
Since I don't know when I'm stuck in Folsom Prison.
Performing in prisons, that was a bold career move. Some critics and industry insiders believed it was really risky, even reckless, for the man in black to do. Johnny's decision to perform in a maximum security prison challenged social norms.
Keeps her rolling on down to San Antone.
Critics worried it might be seen as glorifying or, sympathizing with inmates, potentially tarnishing his image as a mainstream country artist. Some believed that performing in a prison environment might alienate his regular fans who preferred more polished, radio-friendly country music. They feared it would be seen as gritty or unrefined, potentially damaging his commercial prospects altogether.
Man in Reno, just to watch him die.
But instead of damaging his reputation, Johnny Cash's prison performances, they became iconic, endearing him to a broader audience and solidifying his image as the outsider's friend. I mean, fans loved that Johnny could relate to the common folk, that he understood their challenges, and he was right there in the middle of their struggles.
I hang my head and cry.
He was truly a man of the people. Now, when the media pressed the man in black for answers, they often phrased their questions in a very biased way. They were like, why do you want to perform for prisoners? Well, Johnny responded very succinctly, I don't see it as just singing for prisoners. I see it as giving them a little bit of dignity and reminding them that they're still human. Johnny believed that music had the power to heal and to break down barriers. He viewed his prison performances not as acts of charity, but as mutual exchanges. He learned from the inmates just as they responded to his music. His heartfelt approach and sincere belief in the redeeming power of music helped shape his reputation as a champion for the underdog and earned him the nickname, the Man in Black, symbolizing his solidarity with society's outcast for sure.
And that's what tortures me.
The concert was especially cool when he played Folsom Prison Blues. Johnny's At Folsom Prison album became a critical and commercial success, proving that taking a stand and connecting with marginalized communities could be a powerful move. The album started off as most of his concerts did, with his famous greeting, "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash."
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
Like I said, the live version of Folsom Prison Blues that was recorded during his concert for the inmates at Folsom Prison, so cool, was one of Johnny's greatest hits, working its way to #1 on the Hot Country Songs chart in America and Canada, and number 32 on the Billboard Hot 100. It also won Johnny the award for Best Country Male Performance at the Grammy Awards in 1969. So cool.
Whistle, blow my blues away.
Next up on our countdown of the top 6 risky career moves that proved the critics wrong, I got David Bowie's daring transformation away from Ziggy Stardust in 1972 at number 4.
Now Ziggy played guitar.
You know, critics and fans were skeptical. Many saw it as a risky costume change and a departure from his previous work because David Bowie as Ziggy Stardust was a trailblazing character. I mean, it helped Bowie build his status as one of the most fascinating performers in rock, especially during the early 70s. The Ziggy Stardust persona had become so iconic, it overshadowed Bowie himself. He actually feared being forever pigeonholed as Ziggy Stardust, and he wanted to break free from the character's shadow so he could pursue new directions both musically and creatively. I mean, he was a chameleon. He had to do it.
Screwed up eyes and screwed down hairdo.
I mean, the truth is, David Bowie never intended Ziggy Stardust to be anything other than one chapter in a series of transformations, many chapters to his career. Bowie was evolving as an artist and as an individual. I mean, after achieving massive success, he saw shedding Ziggy as a necessary step just to avoid stagnation and to keep his artistry fresh. David felt that clinging to Ziggy was limiting his creative control and authenticity. He wanted to explore new musical styles and personas that better reflected his personal growth, his feelings. There were certainly some disappointed fans when David chose to leave that persona, but he went ahead with his plan to introduce new personalities. There was, of course, Aladdin Sane and the Thin White Duke, to name a few. He continued to intrigue fans with his calculated, unpredictable moves. Along the reconstructive journey, he generated new fans with many of his biggest hits of his career at that time. There was Fame and Golden Years. Then in the early 80s, David no longer relied on a persona at all, or an alter ego. He just played it straight. That period marked arguably his most famous track, Let's Dance, featuring an artistic shift by collaborating with producer Nile Rodgers. A #1 hit right in the middle of a new decade when the musical landscape had completely changed.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues.
David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust was an important timeline in the rock era as a highlight of the glam rock period. But instead of riding a wave that could have permanently typecasted his image, Bowie wisely forged a long-term plan and executed it in order to build longevity over an exciting career.
Now Ziggy played.
Crazy how sometimes life's scariest moments can lead to incredible breakthroughs. And that's exactly what happened to the king of the movie soundtrack before he was the king, Kenny Loggins. During the making of his iconic hit Footloose. This lands him at #3 on our countdown of career killers that turned out to be triumphs. So it all started when Kenny fell off the stage during a performance in Provo, Utah. He broke several ribs and was in a lot of pain. Now, at the time, he was slated to record a big song for the movie Flashdance. It's going to be the big blockbuster. However, while recovering and recording the track, he was on pain medication. This affected his performance. Most notably, he recorded the song in the wrong key. The soundtrack producers weren't pleased and ultimately decided to fire Kenny. They didn't go with the song. Many felt when word got out about Kenny being taken off the Flashdance project, It could have set him back. It could have hurt him. But fortunately, the story took a dramatic turn. The dismissal from Flashdance, or not deciding to go with him, that forced some downtime for Kenny, and it gave him an unexpected gift, the chance to work on a new project. With some free time on his hands, he was able to accept the offer to use his talent for the Footloose soundtrack. It led to Kenny creating one of the most memorable dance anthems of the 80s, well, most memorable dance anthems ever. And a career-defining hit that cemented his status as a superstar and #1 smash. This is what Kenny told me about that.
I was invited into Jerry Bruckheimer's office to watch a rough cut of Flashdance on his little moviola. And I was all set to write a song for Flashdance. I had to go on the road and do a bit of a tour first. And I got to Salt Lake City, and I took one step too many in the dark and fell off about a 15-foot stage onto a packing case and broke 3 ribs. And so I was in the hospital for a couple days there, and then they shipped me home. And they to make sure that I didn't feel any pain, they gave me a whole lot of Percodan. And so I immediately figured I was fine. And within days, I called Jerry Bruckheimer up and said, well, now that I'm not on the road, I think I'll just go in the studio and cut that song. Yeah. So I did. I went in the studio and I cut that song, but I was so high that I cut the song in the totally wrong key.
I mean, sometimes what looks like a disaster can open the door to your greatest success, and that's what happened to Kenny. He could have wallowed around in self-pity when he was sacked. They didn't go with his song for Flashdance. Instead, he recovered from his injury. He got healthy, and he seized a bigger opportunity and did what he did best, made soundtrack hits. Footloose became his signature song in the process and vaulted to #1 in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Colombia, of course, here on the Billboard Hot 100. Coming into the bridesmaid position at #2, we delve into a story of a bold risk and unexpected reward, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now, the Peppers faced a major shakeup when they replaced their founding guitarist, Hillel Slovak, with a young, unknown teenager named John Frusciante. It was a move that many skeptics questioned. Frusciante was new to the scene, and some wondered if he had what it took to fill Hillel's shoes. But that gamble paid off in ways no one could have ever predicted. Frusciante's fresh musical perspective and raw talent became the perfect catalyst for the band's breakthrough. I mean, John just didn't step in. He was invaluable in the crafting of Blood Sugar Sex Magik, the album that catapulted Red Hot Chili Peppers into superstardom for good. From that album came Under the Bridge, a track that became an anthem for a generation. It was a defining moment, not only for the band, but for Frusciante himself. And this is where it gets interesting. I'm giving you a 2-for-1 here. We have a second screw-up that could have ended badly for the Chili Peppers. Let me explain. So Under the Bridge was primarily written by lead singer Anthony Kiedis. The lyrics reflected Anthony's feelings of loneliness and his struggles with addiction, of course, drawing from personal experiences that he was going through at the moment or before that. In fact, the song was so intensely personal, Anthony almost didn't share his words with the band at all. The music was co-written by the band members, with their new guitarist John Frusciante contributing significantly to the melody and the guitar parts. It's hard to believe it. Here's a subplot to what was happening with the Peppers during this period. So executives at Warner Brothers Records were thinking about releasing Under the Bridge as a single. So they wanted to see first, though, how the song was going to play out in a live setting, before they made their decision. So a few weeks into the band's U.S. tour, some record executives went to a show somewhere in the Midwest to check it out. Now, for Anthony Kiedis, performing Under the Bridge live, it wasn't always smooth sailing. I mean, sometimes he nailed it, but sometimes he struggled to get through the song. Again, very personal song for him.
Sometimes I feel like my only friend.
So this particular night, the crowd was massive, and it was time for the song to start. So John started those iconic opening chords. Anthony Kiedis, maybe a little bit nervous, he totally missed his cue. He totally flubbed it up in front of Warner's people and everybody else. You could see he was mortified, thinking he'd blown it in front of the bigwigs. But then something amazing happened. The entire audience jumped in and started singing along perfectly in sync, right where Anthony was supposed to come in. It turns out everyone knew all the words already.
Times I feel like I don't have a partner.
What could have been a total disaster led to the band's biggest hit because of what happened next. After the show, Anthony was feeling pretty embarrassed. He apologized for his big screw up. But the record executives, they just looked at him and they're like, "Are you kidding me? When every single kid in the crowd is singing your song like that, that's your next single." And just like that, Under the Bridge went from an underground hit to a song with major mainstream potential. I mean, before that moment, the Chili Peppers had already scored some success on the U.S. alternative charts. Higher Ground hit number 11, Knock Me Down went to number 6, and Show Me Your Soul went to number 10, I think. And of course, those songs are all great, but none of those made a splash or crossed over to the Hot 100. They didn't really grab the attention of the mainstream crowd. That night virtually changed everything and set the path for the Red Hot Chili Peppers to become one of America's biggest rock bands. Under the Bridge resonated in a major way around the world, rising to the top of the singles chart in the Netherlands, Australia, and Belgium. It went to number 2 on the mainstream rock chart here, and went to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Man, what a song. Back to the countdown of the top 6 perceived career killers that proved to be brilliant moves. We've got a moment when the great Bob Dylan went electric at the Newport Music Festival, coming in at number 1. There can only be one number 1, and it's this one. I mean, imagine the scene. It's the summer of '65 at the Newport Folk Festival, the birthplace of traditional folk music. The audience is filled with passionate purists, folks who believe in sticking to acoustic guitars and banjos and the pure, unvarnished sound of folk music. Bob Dylan, the troubadour, who'd already revolutionized folk with his poetic lyrics and his soulful voice, he steps onto the stage, but this time he's not strumming his acoustic guitar. Instead, he plugged into an electric guitar ready to shake things up. As Dylan begins to play his new song, Maggie's Farm, the crowd's mood shifts instantly. This is in the movie. Whispers turned to murmurs, then to outright boos. Some fans, they just felt betrayed. They saw the move as a sellout, a betrayal of the very roots of folk music. Suddenly, the boos grew louder, voices shouting and jeering, calling him a traitor to the cause. Dylan, totally unfazed, kept playing. His face was stoic, knowing he was making a statement that would change music forever. The moment was controversial. It was polarizing, even hostile. Yet it also marked a major turning point. Dylan's electric set challenged conventionalism and pushed boundaries, opening the door to a new era of music. It was a daring act that risked alienating his folk purist fans, all his fans. But it also paved the way for rock and folk to merge into something entirely new. As music historians reflect back on that electrifying performance, it's just legendary. It's a symbol of boldness, innovation, and the courage to stand apart. That was certainly one of the traits that endeared fans to Bob Dylan in the first place. And of course, it was even better when he played his biggest hit, Like a Rolling Stone. When a fan called him Judas, he walked back on stage to start his second set. Only this time he had his band, the Hawks, with him. Also had a 1965 black Fender Telecaster electric guitar. He blew the crowd away with 2 songs, I Don't Believe You and Ballad of a Thin Man. Just after finishing the song, all hell broke loose as a fan yelled out, "Judas!" basically calling Dylan a traitor as the man who betrayed Jesus. Dylan strummed his guitar and belted out, "I don't believe you, you're a liar."
You're a liar.
And then he turned around, he turned up the volume, and he plowed the crowd with an earth-shattering rendition of Like a Rolling Stone. He put so much mustard on the line, "How does it feel?" It was a powerful auditory middle finger aimed straight at the hecklers. Dylan knew who he was. He knew what he stood for, and Like a Rolling Stone was his call to arms. Plugging in was plugging in to a whole new chapter of his music. It's like the song says, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. You know, Bob Dylan famously said in a 1965 interview, "I didn't think of it as a big deal. I was just trying to do what I felt was right at the moment." Over time, Dylan has shown a deep respect for his folk roots, for sure. But he's also made clear that his quest for musical experimentation, pushing boundaries, that's an essential part of his artistry. I mean, in later years, Dylan also remarked that the backlash was a temporary reaction from a community resistant to change, and he appreciated how that moment pushed him to be honest, to be true to himself regardless of the crowd's reaction. You know, sometimes the most transformative moments are met with a chorus of boos, because the audience isn't ready to see beyond the present. I mean, they're caught up in the moment. They're resistant to change. It's these kinds of bold artistic moves, those that many might shy away from out of fear that change could jeopardize their careers, that truly define history. And sometimes, like Bob Dylan's courageous decision to go electric at the biggest folk music festival, a daring act can leave behind a legacy that rewrites the course of history. It's that willingness to stand apart and push boundaries that often shapes the future. Ah, what a great moment. Well, there you have it. That wraps up our countdown of the top 6 career moves that could have been disastrous, turned out to be triumphant. Leave us a comment on these songs, on your memories of these songs. Man, Mr. Robboto, that definitely was polarizing. What do you think? Are you a fan of Mr. Robboto? And Dylan going electric. I just love that. So many great stories. What else would you like to see? What other countdowns? What other stories? Let's have a great discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.